Good morning. I'm Muriel Bowser, Mayor of Washington, D.C. I am joined today by members of my public safety team as well as officials from the United States Secret Service, the FBI, and the Washington Metropolitan Transit Authority. We are here today to discuss preparations for the 75th anniversary NATO summit, which will be in Washington, D.C. this week. Over the past week, D.C. agencies and federal partners have been meeting to prepare for this summit, and the summit has been designated a national special security event, which means there is coordination across all levels to ensure the safety and security of the event. Of course, we have a lot of experience hosting large-scale security events in the district, and we are here to make sure that this week is a safe and smooth experience for the 37 world leaders who will be here. Chief Smith and our federal partners will say more. For our residents, workers, businesses, and visitors, our main message is to plan ahead. We know that getting through the downtown next week will require extra time, patience, and planning. And there will be road closures, extra security, and delays around the Washington Convention Center and Federal Triangle. The summit will take place between July 9th and July 11th, and some closures will begin as early as Monday and will primarily be in effect Tuesday through Thursday. And we expect by next Friday most closures will be lifted. We are urging people to use public transportation when possible and to plan for closures around the Federal Triangle and Mount Vernon Square metro stations. So if you work within the security footprint, give yourself extra time. And if you live within the security footprint, please adhere to the measures that have been put in place. We have been engaging with impacted businesses and hotels and will continue to engage them throughout the summit. So residents and visitors should text NATO-DC, that's NATODC, to 88877 to get real-time updates on road closures, traffic, and more. And to see a list of the road closures and additional information on the NATO summit, you can also visit nsse.dc.gov. That's nsse.dc.gov. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our chief, who will be followed by Matt Stoller, the special agent in charge for the United States Secret Service. Randy Clark from Metro, Nikki Flores from the FBI, to round out Clint Osborne from DCH-SEMA.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Pamela A. Smith of the Metropolitan Police Department here in Washington, D.C. We're glad to be here again at H-SEMA to provide an update to the public as we are now a week away from the start of the NATO summit. The Metropolitan Police Department has been working very closely with our district and federal partners for quite some time in preparation for this event. Let me put it simply, next week is not going to be a regular week in D.C. We anticipate the summit will increase traffic throughout the city. The biggest impacts will be felt around two security perimeters in place around the Washington Convention Center and around Mellon Auditorium in the Federal Triangle. Both perimeters will require extensive road closures that will begin next Monday, July 8th. Everyone who lives or works in D.C., may be visiting D.C., should have a plan for next week. That is why we're gathered here today to share information, and we'll continue to push out pertinent information as we make our way towards the summit. Businesses and residences within these closure zones will still be accessible by pedestrians, but will be streamlined through designated entrances. We are working to minimize these impacts while ensuring the maximum security. We are leaning on Washingtonians to do what they have done time and time again, exercise patience and understand that these impacts are needed to keep both summit attendees, visitors, and all of our D.C. residents safe. We anticipate an increase in First Amendment demonstrations in our city as NATO gets underway. As always, the Metropolitan Police Department supports individuals peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights, but we will not tolerate violence of any kind, and offenders will be held accountable. I want to ensure all Washingtonians that MPD is prepared for the NATO summit, and we'll continue to work closely with our partners to ensure its security. The best resource, as the mayor has stated, the latest information for all of us today is at nsse.dc.gov. And as always, if you see something, say something. For immediate threats, call 911. For other tips, call our real-time crime center at 202-727-9099. Let me say that again, 202-727-9099, or text us anonymously at 50411. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Special Agent in Charge, Matthew Stoller from the United States Secret Service.
Thank you, Chief Smith. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Stoller, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the U.S. Secret Service Washington Field Office. I'll be providing an overview of the security measures that will be in place here in Washington, D.C. during the NATO summit, which has been designated a National Special Security Event, or NSSE. Though Washington, D.C. is a frequent host to events of this magnitude, we understand there will be impacts to visitors, residents, and businesses next week. The goal of the U.S. Secret Service and our partners is to provide a safe and secure environment for summit events and attendees while minimizing any inconvenience to the public. I'll begin with a brief overview of the expected street impacts, then move into a review of the security impact maps. All of this information is available to the public on the NSSE website, as has been referenced, at nsse.dc.gov. Intermittent street closures will begin in downtown Washington, D.C., near the Washington Convention Center and the Carnegie Library the evening of July 8th. Official street closures will begin July 10th and will be in place through the evening of July 11th. Intermittent street closures will also take place on the evening of July 8th around the Mellon Auditorium, and official closures will be in place the morning of July 9th and will conclude late that evening. Enhanced security measures to include intermittent street closures around the White House complex will occur in the afternoon and during the evening of July 10th. Prior to all of these restrictions being in place, the public may notice security barriers and fencing being pre-staged or installed in these areas. Sidewalk and limited lane impacts may occur during this time to help facilitate those installations. The public should also expect parking restrictions within these areas, all of which will be posted on the NSSE website. The area shaded in blue on the map is the vehicle screening perimeter. The vehicle screening perimeter is open to all pedestrians with no checkpoint screening or credential required. All vehicles may also enter the vehicle screening perimeter, but they must do so through a vehicle access point where they will be briefly screened by law enforcement. Those access points are marked on the map with a black diamond containing a check mark. Please note that not all areas within the vehicle screening perimeter are accessible from every vehicle access point, so we recommend using the access point closest to your destination. Bicycles are permitted to enter the vehicle screening perimeter and are not required to enter through a vehicle access point. Rideshares, taxis, and hot food delivery will be available in the vehicle screening perimeter. Vehicles will just need to enter through one of the vehicle access points. Those who live and work within the vehicle screening perimeter will be able to access their homes and workplaces as usual. However, if driving a personal vehicle, they will just need to enter the perimeter through one of the screening points. All affected residents and workers are encouraged to review the public security map so they understand how these security measures could affect them and can plan accordingly. The red shaded area on the map is the pedestrian restricted or inner perimeter. Access to the pedestrian restricted perimeter is restricted to credentialed individuals such as summit attendees and staff. Individuals will need to enter through a pedestrian checkpoint and be screened in order to enter through those areas. Trash services, mail, package delivery, and other services will continue for all locations in both the pedestrian and vehicle zones. Those services will shift slightly to occur overnight or in early morning hours. Taxis, rideshares, and hot food delivery will generally not be allowed to enter the pedestrian restricted area. All deliveries entering either security perimeter must go through the remote delivery and commercial vehicle screening site located at New York Avenue Northwest and 6th Street Northwest. The remote delivery and commercial vehicle screening site will be open starting Wednesday, July 10th at 6 a.m. and continue operating until the conclusion of the event on Thursday, July 11th at approximately 7:30 p.m. All delivery vehicles will be sealed and must proceed directly to the security checkpoint. If they arrive at the checkpoint with a broken seal, they will be required to return to the screening site for rescreening. Transportation vans equipped with wheelchair and lift ramps traveling to the Washington Convention Center will not need to go through the remote delivery site for processing. The U.S. Secret Service and our partners have been conducting outreach and collaborating with residents and business community throughout the planning of this event to minimize disruptions wherever possible. We remain committed to informing the public about any potential changes to these security measures in order to give them the opportunity to adjust their routines. Residents and business owners are encouraged to follow the Metropolitan Police Department on social media and visit the NATO Summit website at nsse.dc.gov for a full overview of the security impacts. In addition, the public can subscribe to real-time text updates by texting NATO-DC to 888-777. I would now like to introduce Randy Clark, General Manager and CEO of the Washington Area Metropolitan Transit Authority. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Randy Clark here with Metro. Metro is collaborating with all of our partners, and just reiterating what the mayor said, we are here to get people around this city, whether you're a resident, business, visitor alike. And as the mayor said, we encourage everyone to use mass transit, so Metro will be prepared to get people around. With that said, patience, planning ahead is really important. I'm going to detail a couple, again, closures that were mentioned, but in a little bit more detail. So, 2 stations that will be closed temporarily due to the NATO Summit events next week will be Federal Triangle Station. We will be closing that station on July 9th throughout the entirety of the day. Also, Mount Vernon Station will be closed starting Tuesday, and we're going to reopen again on Friday morning. So again, closed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for Mount Vernon Station. Now, both of those stations will allow trains to move through the station. So if you are going to other parts of the system, we will be running trains through that station. No one will be able to enter or exit at those 2 stations. So again, Federal Triangle just on Tuesday and Mount Vernon on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We also have over 20 bus routes that are going to be impacted, some very significantly from these closures that were just detailed. Instead of going through all of those routes, I'd encourage everyone to go to WMATA.com and get very specific, and we will put out more additional information, granular information on those bus routes that are impacted. We have a lot of MTPD resources already out on the system, but we will have additional units out, and you may see as part of our special response team out there as well. See something, say something is obviously the message we all want to reinforce. If you see something on the transit system, my MTPD, you could text that number, which is 696-873. You could also use our various Twitter handles that are responded to and basically as close as possible to real time. And I encourage people to use Metro Pulse or, again, our various Twitter feeds to get real-time information on bus and rail service. So, again, we are committed to getting people around. We know it's going to be a little bit disruptive week, but we still plan on getting everyone where they need to go safely. With that, I'd like to introduce another one of our partners, FBI Intelligence Analyst in Charge, Nikki Flores.
Thank you, General Manager Clark. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nikki Flores, and I'm the Intelligence Analyst in Charge at the FBI's Washington Field Office. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to discuss the FBI's partnership with local and federal agencies as we prepare for the upcoming summit here in D.C. For this event, the FBI has the lead federal law enforcement responsibility for crisis management, response to terrorism threats, and intelligence. Leading up to and during the event, FBI intelligence analysts will assess and share information about the event with our partners. We will evaluate any information and intelligence received and will work with our partners to safely and quickly respond to any issue. At this time, we are not tracking any credible threats to the events themselves. That being said, it should be lost on no one that DC on a normal day is a target-rich environment for potential threat actors. As such, we would like to remind the public to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity to law enforcement. We look forward to working with our partners to secure a safe event. And with that, I will turn it over to Clint Osborne, the Acting Director for DCHCMA. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Clint Osborne, Acting Director of the DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, or HCMA. In coordination with the United States Secret Service and at the direction of Mayor Bowser, HCMA will host district, regional, and federal partners in the Emergency Operations Center from July 9th through July 11th to support a safe and secure convening of the 2024 NATO summit. The activation of district operations centers allows for a direct flow of information between local and federal partners and a swift, coordinated response from the Bowser administration to minimize impacts to district operations. The District Joint Information Center, or JIC, will also be staffed by district and federal public information officers and to coordinate and quickly disseminate public messaging. Media inquiries relating to the 2024 NATO summit can be sent to nsse.jic@dc.gov. That's nsse.jic@dc.gov. We have several community calls to action for this event. The first is that throughout the NSSE period, it's important you have the latest information at your fingertips. The district will use Nixle, a free opt-in text messaging service to provide the community with real-time NATO updates. Again, as the mayor said, you can text NATODC to 888-777 to sign up for free updates on public safety, street closures, weather, transit updates, and more. Notably, Nixle supplements the district's public information and warning capabilities. It does not replace Alert DC messaging or the wireless emergency alert system. The district has used Nixle for other large events such as the 59th presidential inauguration and large-scale First Amendment demonstrations, sporting events, championships, parades. So you'll be familiar with that technology. Finally, as you heard Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith mention, there are several steps you can take to prepare for the impacts associated with hosting a multi-day national special security event. The first, as General Manager Clark spoke to, use public transportation. Plan ahead for alternate routes to accommodate road closures and parking restrictions associated with summit activities. You can find a full list of closures and an interactive map again at nsse.dc.gov. Be patient. As you've heard our law enforcement partners mention, our priority is to keep everyone safe. Motorists should exercise patience, be aware of pedestrians, and travel slowly through the impacted areas. Businesses can also leverage the district's Business Emergency Operations Center for event updates and resources to support continued operations throughout the National Special Security event period. Visit hcema.dc.gov/DCBEMOC to sign up. Again, that's hcema.dc.gov/DCBEMOC to sign up.
So thank you for all of those updates. And I think that we've given you all of the websites and text information, but we'll make sure that we continue to push that out by press release so everyone knows where to go with questions. We'll take a few questions now. Yes, Mark.
A couple of questions for Special Agent Stoller
Yep.
about the restricted areas. First, are there restricted areas like the vehicles and pedestrians around the White House or just around the Convention Center and Mellon Auditorium?
So there's multiple sites for the NSSE over the span of the few days. So when the events are going on, so on the 10th, there will be an event at the White House. There will be some additional restrictions there and some additional security apparatus. And then, of course, on the 9th for the Mellon Auditorium, and then the 10th and the 11th for the Convention Center. So,
And can you tell us how many vehicle access points and how many pedestrian access points there are in these areas?
yeah, so the maps behind us depict where those are, and the websites that we referenced, they're going to contain those documents as well. If there's any changes, if for whatever reason we're there, executing the security plan, and we determine we have to make any shifts, the maps will be updated and the public will be notified of that.
So when we get these maps, it'll have those access points designated on.
Correct.
I appreciate. My last
Yes, sir.
question. I appreciate your patience.
Yes,
Is
sir.
there designated areas for protesters to gather at these locations?
I'll defer to our partners with MPD with respect to that. The Secret Service does not designate protest zones, but a lot of that type of activity is permitted. Chief, do you have anything to add to that?
I think, Mark, we always have designated areas for our First Amendment activities, and in this particular NATO summit, it will be the same. If you want to find out more, just reach out to us, and we'll give you that information.
Couple questions. First, with regard to the MPD police posture, is this going to be for DC Police all hands on deck, mandatory overtime? I got two more.
Sure, Chief.
Yes, and because of the fact we know we need the additional resources, we will have mandatory overtime. We are actually going to 12-hour shifts. We're increasing the number of personnel that we'll have available throughout the NATO summit.
And then with regard, I'm sorry, I'm Stephanie with Fox 5.
Yes,
With
Stephanie.
regard to the perimeter, are firearms going to be allowed in there whether you have concealed carry permit or not?
No, unless it's authorized law enforcement.
And does that, I'm sorry, a special police officer, would that be included as authorized law enforcement?
I defer to MPD.
Well, Stephanie, our specialized police officers have the authority to carry firearms in the designated areas in which they are working. So if they're not working within the perimeter and if they're not on their respective job or place of employment, they will not be allowed to have firearms on their persons. Yes, ma'am.
And then with regard to the world leaders that are going to be here, what is the alert or information going to them with DC crime and how to be safe in the streets? What has been transmitted to other people across the world coming to DC?
So each of the dignitaries that the Secret Service protects, and I will point out that we're going to have other dignitaries in town that are going to be protected by other groups, the Diplomatic Security Service with the Department of State, as well as our partners with, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency. But as part of that, there's an advanced team that's stood up to engage directly with the staff, also State Department protocol. So any information, any intelligence with regards to crime or just general intel is communicated to the details and communicated up to those individuals through that mechanism.
Yes.
Holmes Labyrinth with CNN. I just wanted to ask, there was mention of an increase in protests. What footprint are you expecting for this NATO summit in terms of First Amendment demonstrations?
I don't know that we have the information on any permits that were requested, but we can. Do you have that?
We have some.
Okay, we have. Let me ask the chief talk to you about the permits that have been requested.
Yeah, we do have some permits that Answer and Code Pink and some of the others who have requested permits for this particular event. And as you know, anytime there's whether it's a NATO summit or any other type of activity here in the District of Columbia, we do allow members or individuals to exercise their First Amendment activity.
One more question. What is the biggest security concern for this summit? Is it the First Amendment demonstration? Is it the lone wolf? I mean, what is the biggest security concern?
I think right now we as you know, and I think as the FBI stated, that we have not received any credible threats with regards to any type of concern to this NATO summit. But as you know, we work very closely with our partners, both federal and local, in order to ensure that we can provide the safety for those of them who are visiting the District of Columbia.
And that includes a robust monitoring of social media?
Absolutely. And that's with all of our partners. You're welcome.
Okay. Two questions. 1, 2, and 3. Yes.
Mayor, hi, Rebecca with 7 News. If you can tell us, is the National Guard being requested for this? Are they on standby?
Yes, Chief, and I'm going to let me turn it over to Secret Service to talk about all requests.
Yeah, so as part of the NSSE planning process, there's an executive steering committee that is stood up. Underneath that, there are a series of subcommittees, in this case, 22 subcommittees to address things like transportation, communications, things of that nature. And so as we look at the entirety of the NSSE collectively, we make determinations from a resource perspective as to what we may or may not need. And all of those flowing up through the subcommittees, they put together requests for assistance. And those get processed accordingly so that we're not duplicating efforts and there's no gaps. In this case, there was a small contingent of National Guard that was requested that will be primarily focused on traffic assistance.
And are you able to elaborate on the small contingent, like numbers as far as, what percentage, if you will, of the National Guard?
It's a small number. I don't know offhand, but it's a very small number, again, just to supplement some of the traffic considerations. No, it is not DC National Guard, correct? No. It is DC, I'm sorry. Yep.
How about outside jurisdictions, law enforcement
I will defer to MPD on that. Again, as we look at things collectively, if there's a need to surge in some capacity, those typically flow that direction. Chief. For what, ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Beatrice Peterson, ABC News. Last month we had talked about rolling road closures because there's so many dignitaries going from point A to point B. Is that still the case? Will residents have to deal with rolling road closures and other street closures periodically throughout the summit?
The short answer is yes. Again, there's multiple days for the NSSC. The 9th being an evening event, so you'll see things around the area of Federal Triangle. The next 2 days, primarily at the Convention Center, but also at the White House. But as mentioned, there's 32 member nations and 5 partner nations for NATO, in addition to ministers of foreign affairs and other dignitaries, and some of which will be bringing spouses. So there's going to be a lot of motorcades. There will be some hard closures, primarily around the sites, but you will see rolling closures throughout the city as the hotels and places that they're staying are kind of spread out.
Hi, Jenny Gathright with the Washington Post, and this is also for you, Special Agent Stoller. You mentioned that vehicles with deliveries would be sealed. Can you explain what that means? Sure.
So as you can imagine, the larger the vehicle, the more ability to store things in there, and so deliveries, sometimes those trucks can be very full. So working with partners, we have the vehicle screening checkpoint that we have. Uses some capabilities to screen things much more quickly. Obviously, we want to get those goods and services to the public and the businesses in those areas. And so it will be screened using this equipment, and then it will be sealed, and then they'll transit to whatever vehicle access point they need to go to. We can't set up the equipment at each of the checkpoints for the much larger vehicles, so just the larger vehicles will go to that centralized location. They'll be sealed, and then they'll go to the actual access point that they need.
With like tape or like what?
I don't know exactly, but it'll be something that is tamper-proof, essentially. So if it's been tampered with, the folks at the checkpoint will know, and they'll turn them away.
That centralized location that you go to first is in the blue area, in the shaded area?
It's on the edge. It's New York and 6th. Yes, sir.
Just real quick with the food deliveries, we have a large influx of moped delivery drivers now, many of whom do not speak English. Do we have anyone really? Oh, you can hear me? I'll try again. Okay. Do we have any sort of like liaison working with them, because there are restaurants and things that may be delivering within the area? I mean, to communicate with them the best ways to maneuver this, because I don't know this would be top of mind for them.
Yeah, so there's a series of things we've done in terms of community outreach, informally going around to local businesses and to residences to inform them of some of these impacts. We've also had at least 2 formal settings where we met with the Advisory Neighborhood Council and other groups to discuss these types of things, so in terms of businesses that may have drivers doing that. In addition to that, the folks on the security perimeter will be armed with information as well, right? They'll have access to the websites, but they'll also have information to be able to direct folks to where they need to go, whether it be to somewhere to be screened or somewhere to just access where they need to go. The folks on that external perimeter will have that information to pass to anyone, to include those drivers.
One last question. What's sort of like for people watching this who are going to see this later, what's the most similar comparable event we've had in D.C. that they can kind of compare this to, and to kind of get an understanding of what they should be ready for?
Probably the best thing, at least in recent history, would be the African Leaders Summit in December of 2022. The main primary site for that summit was also the Washington Convention Center for that event, and there was an event at the White House as well. I think the footprint's going to be a little bigger. There's more people that have been invited to this, more dignitaries, but that's probably the closest parallel.
Okay. A few more. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
Rebecca Ingram with 7 News. And following up on that, so is the primary site for this as well the Washington Convention Center? I know there's a couple of different sites, but...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you can talk about, how ready we are for this, as far as safety, as far as security, transportation, et cetera.
We're very ready. We work daily with all the partners on the stage here today, as well as many, many other public safety partners every day, day in and day out. My office handles all of the protection that occurs on the Secret Service standpoint in D.C. and the NCR every day. So we have incredible relationships Again, the planning for this formally has been going on for about 5 months, but informally many months prior to that. So we're ready.
Okay. Chief, if you can, I know we've talked a bit about demonstrations and how your department is preparing for that. The last time a summit was held here in the U.S. was in Chicago in 2012, and there were times when those demonstrations did get violent. If you can just talk about some of the precautions police are taking to make sure both protesters and police stay safe. Are they going to be ready with riot gear? Is it case by case? If you
We all, as you know, anytime we have a significant increase in visitation here in the District of Columbia, specifically related to things like the NATO summit and the African summit that occurred in 2022, we are always prepared. We have a civil disturbance unit who will be prepared and on standby, but we also have other partners here in the regional area that will also support us in that space. As we've talked about, the partners that are here today will also have a team available to support us in the event we find some increase in violent behavior. As I've stated to you earlier, we promote First Amendment activities and free speech, but we will not tolerate any violence.
I'm wondering, somewhat related, about the 4th of July, and if we could get the same level of detail about road closures, checkpoints, metro status. 4th of July will be here a lot sooner than the NATO summit will.
Yes, happy birthday, America, this Thursday. So let me just say this, and I think the team has all of those road closures prepared to send out. If you don't have it already, you will have it shortly. We, of course, are prepared for our local festivities. We'll be over at Barracks Row and also in the Palisades for DC's neighborhood parades. There also will be a family-friendly event beginning at 5 p.m. That's at 13th and Pennsylvania Avenue, and the fireworks, of course, at nightfall. Let me encourage everyone to leave the fireworks to the professionals. Do not let children around fireworks or to handle fireworks. Know that most of the loud and flying fireworks that you hear or see are illegal in the District of Columbia. And we want everybody to have a safe and enjoyable 4th of July. So we have the best fireworks display down on the mall, so please try to come and enjoy them. We will have outdoor pools and spray parks open as well, 10 recreation centers open, and our district EOC and Joint Information Center will be operating to support everybody coming in and leaving safely. So please, if you see something, say something. As has already been stated, call 911 in case of an emergency, and be mindful of the weather conditions.
Do you know, will people have to pass through checkpoints to get onto the National Mall?
Let me turn to the chief.
Yes, Mark. I think the footprint for July 4th on the National Mall will be the same as it has been in years past. There will be access points. I think the U.S. Park Police will be monitoring the access points onto the mall. If you go to I think the information is going to be shared tomorrow with regards to what you can and cannot bring onto the National Mall with respect to the fireworks. I think the mayor has stated very clearly that fireworks are illegal. So therefore, we're asking our residents and or visitors from any location, do not bring fireworks to the National Mall or to the District of Columbia.
General Manager Clark, could you brief us on your status?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Well, as you know, July 4th is one of the biggest days for Metro every year. So we'll have all hands on deck, all of our public safety officials, all of our transportation staff. We'll have our Emergency Operations Center activated. This year, with board approval, we're actually going fare-free after 5 p.m. So I think we can't reiterate enough. Please use public transportation to access July 4th activities. We did that last year. It enabled a much smoother and safer egress from the event. We plan on moving hundreds of thousands of people. We encourage people to also use L'Enfant Station, not just Smithsonian. Quite frankly, if you can walk up to Metro Center, that's also a great alternative too, depending on where you're going. So just, again, a little bit of pre-planning, a little bit of patience. We are going to move everyone through those stations and get everyone home safely and have a fantastic day. The only other thing I'd reiterate, it's going to be pretty warm. So, again, a little pre-planning, a little extra hydration keeps everyone a little safer for the event. No stations closed. We may close entrances at LaFont or Smithsonian. Usually it's Smithsonian, the mall side. We temporarily close and do egress only sometimes, or sorry, no egress and just ingress, depending on the flow. Everything is about throughput and safely for our elevators and escalators and things of that nature. So there will be probably temporary times that we do that, but it's all about the flow, getting people safely in other stations.
And rail and bus free?
Yes, after 5 p.m.
And how late will Metro go that night?
It's Thursday, so we'll be open till midnight on Thursday. Yeah, thank you.
Just quickly going back to
Way to bury the lead. Metro is free after 5 p.m. on the 4th of July. So ride the Metro. And there will be lots of other activities around town as well. Before 5, I know there's a Nats game. So there'll be a lot of folks at Nats Park as well. Okay, last question.
Sorry, just quickly going back to NATO, can you confirm, I know you said that the National Guard is requested for transportation, but are they going to be armed? And then in terms of what this is going to look like, I understand that you mentioned a previous summit, but for the residents, is it basically like what we saw during the inauguration where you see DPR trucks blocking and then you see multiple people, around the security perimeter? What is that going to look like?
I think the special agent described it best, that there are several main points of activity related to the NATO summit, Mellon Auditorium, the White House, and the Convention Center. And if people don't recall the African Leaders Summit, I think when he said it's the most similar, it is, in my experience, the most similar to what people are going to see. If you're asking for what materials they'll use I think the DPW will be used as needed. Yes, they'll be available. Okay, is that your question?
Will they be armed?
I don't know.
They will not be armed, no.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you.